Today I'm here to announce that our office will be filing charges against Nick Reiner, who is accused of killing his parents, actor-director Rob Reiner, and photographer-producer Michelle Singer.
Steven Spielberg and Rob Reiner stand as two giants of modern cinema, each moving in his own lane, but driven by the same obsession with storytelling. Spielberg is the director who can make wonder feel real and danger feel personal. Reiner is the filmmaker who can make you laugh, then turn around and hit you with something painfully human.
Nick attended Conan O'Brien's Christmas party Saturday night with his parents, Michelle and Rob. Maybe Nick was not invited to Conan O'Brien's party. He was wearing a hoodie. Reports are that he was acting weird, apparently accosting celebrities outside. Nick reportedly stormed off in a huff after a tiff with Bill Hader of SNL and Barry at Conan's Christmas party, and that Rob had been telling people, friends, that they were scared for Nick and scared for his mental state, that it was deteriorating.
Different styles, same respect, and for decades their paths crossed in that small, intense Hollywood circle where everyone knows everyone, even if they're not the kind of guys grabbing dinner every week. Reiner came up inside show business and learned timing the hard way. As a performer, a writer, and then the director who understood that comedy only works when the emotions underneath are honest. Spielberg's story is the classic movie myth that actually happened. A kid with a camera who never stopped chasing the feeling of being pulled into a screen.
What I feel after all of this is it's not about punishing. If somebody is struggling and has difficulties, you don't punish them for that. And I think a lot of these programs feel like the kid is being punished. And I don't think that's a great way to go. You're a parent and you think, here's my kid running out into the street, he's going to get hit by a truck. You want to keep him.
Their careers don't look the same, but they rhyme. Both men built their best work around one thing that never goes out of style: human connection. So when frightening headlines and frantic posts started spreading about Rob Reiner in mid-December 2025, it didn't land like regular celebrity chatter. It landed like the floor dropping out. In the first hours, the information online was messy and contradictory, the kind of chaos that makes you question everything you're reading. And before we go deeper, if you like these emotionally rich Hollywood stories, hit subscribe now so you don't miss the next one. What made the situation so unsettling is that Reiner wasn't just another famous name. He was the guy whose movies live inside people's memories. Stand By Me isn't just a coming-of-age film. It's the feeling of a summer that never comes back. The Princess Bride isn't just a comedy, it's a love story that feels like it belongs to everyone. When Harry Met Sally didn't just create catchphrases, it shaped how an entire generation talked about romance. And A Few Good Men didn't just entertain, it gave moviegoers one of the most quoted courtroom moments in film history. Spielberg's legacy is different, but the emotional goal is the same. Make people feel something they can't shake. From Jaws to E.T. to Schindler's List to Saving Private Ryan, he's built a career on turning fear, awe, and moral weight into images you can't unsee. Even when the stories are huge, the heartbeat is intimate. A child alone, a parent failing, a community trying to survive. And when you've spent your life telling stories about family, danger, and survival, real-world tragedy hits like a punch you can't brace for. That's why the first wave of online claims mattered. Not because Hollywood is obsessed with drama, but because the internet has trained everyone to react first and verify later. A single rumor can be reposted a million times before a single fact is confirmed. In this case, the early noise was especially cruel because it collided with something far more serious than gossip. By the time reliable reporting caught up, the story was devastating. The Associated Press reported that Rob Reiner and his wife, photographer and producer Michelle Singer Reiner, were found dead in their Los Angeles home in Brentwood, and that their son, Nick Reiner, was arrested in connection with their deaths. And here's where people need to breathe for a second, because this is also where misinformation can cause real harm. An arrest is not a conviction, and a case like this unfolds in stages. In early reporting, AP described an investigation that was still developing. In later reporting, AP said prosecutors charged Nick Reiner with 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with special circumstance allegations that could increase potential penalties if proven in court. The shock didn't stop at the headline. It deepened when people started looking back at what was already known about the family's internal struggle. AP reported that Nick Reiner had a history of addiction struggles and that he previously collaborated with his father on Being Charlie, a film tied to themes of recovery, relapse, and family exhaustion. That detail doesn't explain a tragedy, but it does underline something painful. This was not a family untouched by long-term worry. And that's the point where Spielberg and Reiner's shared worldview matters. Both men built careers on a simple truth. The most powerful stories are human stories. Reiner's best work is basically a microscope on ordinary emotions, friendship, longing, insecurity, the kind of conversations that happen in kitchens at midnight. Spielberg's best work is often larger in scale, but the engine is still personal. A kid searching for belonging, a parent trying to protect a child, a person trying to do the right thing when it costs. That's why, even without a long public statement from Spielberg, it's not hard to understand why this kind of news would rattle the entire community. Hollywood relationships can be shallow, sure, but the director circle is also small. People share crews, people share producers, people see each other at festivals and awards year after year. Respect becomes a kind of long-term friendship, even if it's mostly built in passing conversations, backstage hellos, and mutual nods across crowded rooms. There's another layer too. Spielberg knows what it's like when family stories become public stories. He has talked about how personal pain can end up inside the work, and how you sometimes don't even realize you're processing something until you're deep into the edit. So when news like this breaks, it doesn't just become industry talk. It becomes a reminder that no amount of success, talent, or legacy puts a family above heartbreak. And then comes the ugliest part of our modern moment, the rumor machine. The first posts don't say allegedly. They say it like it's proven. People pick a villain before they read a single verified report. Others start inventing inside sources for attention. And once it's out there, it doesn't go away. Even when facts arrive, the internet keeps chewing on the same garbage, because the lies were more entertaining than the truth. AP noted tributes pouring in from public figures and across entertainment as the shock spread. And while grief was real, the noise was real too. That's what makes this era feel so unsettling. Tragedy now arrives with a comment section. Loss arrives with conspiracy threads. A family can't even collapse in peace without strangers trying to turn it into content. Michelle Singer Reiner's story, especially, risked being swallowed by the spectacle at first, and that's unfair. AP described her as an accomplished photographer, producer, and LGBTQ+ rights advocate with a life shaped by activism and personal history. She wasn't a footnote to Rob Reiner's career. She was her own force, and the kind of person whose impact can be quieter but lasting. And this is where the Spielberg lens matters, because Spielberg is one of the few people alive who understands what it means to build a legacy that outlives you. Not in a fame way, but in a people carry your stories through their lives way. So what happens when someone like Reiner, whose films were built on warmth and humor, becomes attached to a story this bleak? The culture doesn't know how to hold both things at once. It wants a clean narrative. It wants a simple villain. It wants a fast conclusion. But real life doesn't move like a movie. The truth takes time. Evidence gets tested. Accounts get challenged. Lawyers argue. Judges decide. And while all of that plays out, the public has a choice: spread heat or show restraint. If you want to help, don't share the breaking post from a random account. Share verified reporting, or better yet, don't share anything until you know it's real. If you've made it this far, hit like, because stories like this don't get told carefully unless people actually support careful storytelling. And if you're here for deeper Hollywood dives, subscribe, because I'm bringing more stories that respect the people behind the headlines. The most painful truth might be this: when families wrestle with addiction, love can exist alongside fear. Hope can exist alongside exhaustion. Boundaries can feel like betrayal, and doing everything you can still might not be enough. P's reporting on this case repeatedly points to a long-running struggle behind the scenes, now exposed in the harshest possible way. But even in the middle of all this, one thing doesn't change. Rob Reiner's films are still here. The jokes still land. The love stories still hurt in the best way. The friendships still feel like your own. And that's not escaping reality. That's remembering that a person is bigger than the worst day attached to their name. If you want to understand why Spielberg and Reiner are spoken about in the same breath, look at what they both chased. Not perfection, not awards, connection. One made a shark movie that turned into a cultural earthquake, and the other made a romantic comedy that turned into a language people still speak. Both understood that audiences don't just want plot. They want emotion that feels true. And in a moment like this, that's what people cling to. Not the rumors, not the hot takes, the human parts, the scenes that made them call a friend, the lines they quoted at weddings, the comfort movies they put on when they can't sleep. That's legacy, not headlines. So here's the only fair ending for a story that still isn't finished. Let the investigation do what it has to do. Let the people involved have whatever privacy they can find. And don't let the internet turn grief into entertainment. If this story moved you, tell me in the comments which Rob Reiner film hit you the hardest, or which Spielberg scene you can never forget. And if you want more stories like this, like the video, share it with someone who loves film history, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Stay tuned for the follow-up and don't miss the next part.